even though I'm 42 years old and I am a middle-aged adult. Am I a middle-aged adult? I certainly freaking feel like a middle-aged adult. I'm a middle-aged adult. There is still a part of me that is young and has big feelings, that has needs, that has dreams, that has desires, that wants to control things, that wants to predict things, that wants to push people away. There's those parts of me that still exist. And if I'm not aware of her, if I don't tend to her, if I don't heal her, if I don't reparent her, guess what? She comes out to take over when she is triggered.
Hey, I'm Brooke Jean, therapist, recovering perfectionist, and struggling working mom on a mission to normalize normal. If you're an overwhelmed, high-achieving, and secretly anxious mama, struggling to balance it all and on the brink of burnout, you are in the right place. Here is where we talk about hard things like balancing work and family life, mental health, and how to navigate life-altering transitions. Nothing is too taboo here. In my conversations, I'll teach you how to let go of who you think you're supposed to be in order to create the life you've always wanted. Get ready to embrace your messy, shed the shoulds, and find freedom through a life unperfected. This is the Unperfected Pod.
Welcome back to the Unperfected Pod, where we normalize normal and find freedom through a life unperfected. I am Brooke Jean, and I am your host, and I am so excited today to be talking about the inner child. So you may have never heard of this term or concept before, or maybe you've actually heard about people tending to their inner child or healing their inner child or doing the so-called inner child work, but you don't really know what that means. Or maybe you've actually already embarked on that journey and know a little something about your inner child. Wherever you're at on that spectrum, there's going to be something in this conversation for you, because today I want to talk about what is the inner child, how do you know who your inner child is, and what are 7 things you can do to connect and strengthen your relationship with and heal that inner child. And the reason why inner child work is so important, not only I think therapeutically for human beings in order to be whole and to be grounded in their adult, best, healthiest version of themselves, I think it's really important work to do as mothers, because all too often, many of us are walking around with a wounded inner child that's longing for her basic needs to be met, longing for somebody to tend to her emotional needs. And when that doesn't happen, which we know happens all so easily in the role of parenting, she gets triggered, she gets lonely, she gets scared, and then we have these big feelings, and those big feelings determine our behaviors. And so as mothers, if we can create awareness and compassion around our inner child, we'll be able to know, wow, am I in my adult, present, parenting self, or am I in my younger version of myself and I need to do some work to get back into the seat of the parent so that way I don't act out of alignment with the mother, the person, the human being that I want to be. So let's first talk about the kind of psychological construct, concept, and phenomenon of the inner child. And basically, this concept is based upon the premise that as human beings, we are extraordinarily complex beings, and we have many parts to our existence, many that are inside of our awareness. So, for example, I know that I'm a mother. That's a part of who I am. I know that I'm driven. That's a part of who I am. I know that I'm the oldest of 3 kids. I'm the oldest child. That's a part of who I am. I'm a leader. That's a part of who I am. I have these. I'm also pretty feisty and fiery. I'm a Scorpio. That's a part of who I am. So I have these parts of who I am that are inside my conscious awareness, and we call those identities. But we also have a whole plethora of parts that are outside of our conscious awareness. They are subconscious parts. And this is where that inner child and inner teenager resides. And how it's a part of our psyche and our existence is this. So you're growing up 0 to 6 or 0 to 7, those formative early childhood years where you are just this precious, impressionable being, absorbing information, learning to walk, learning to socialize, learning to read, learning to ride a bike, all of these things. You have big feelings. And how many of you as children were really into imaginative play, right? We lived in wonder and play and pleasure and imagination and creation. And we just had no understanding of judgment. We were our whole, beautiful, and perfect selves. And then something happens as we start to grow older, especially as we start to enter into pre-adolescence. We start to gain an understanding of other people's perceptions of us. We become aware of how we stand in a social group, of what our stature is, of what people believe about us or what their judgments might be about us. And maybe it's our parents that are telling us you're too emotional or you're too loud or you're too intense, or it's your teacher saying you talk too much, or it's your teacher saying you're not that smart, or it's your coach saying you're lazy in so many words, right? We start to get these messages that begin to chip away at that core, authentic essence of who we are. And then when we start going through puberty and we become a pre-adolescence, all of a sudden, out of the nowhere, with this heightened awareness of judgment and what other people think about us, we have to transition from this child, this precious child with big feelings and extraordinary wonder and creativity and imagination, overnight to this person who's no longer allowed to cry like that, no longer allowed to need her mommy and daddy like that, no longer allowed to wear whatever she wants to wear or be whoever she wants to be or play pretend in these big, beautiful, grandiose ways. And overnight, this adolescent version of us begins to shun out this child version of us that says, okay, girl, there is no crying in baseball. Big girls don't cry. It's not cool to look like that. It's not cool to act like that. And we shut that version of ourselves away. But everything is made up of energy. And so that younger inner child breaks off, but it still exists in our psyche, in our bodies, and in our energy. But we shut her away. We put her in the basement and we say, there's no more place for play or pleasure or wonder or creativity or imagination. And then we become cool, right? We become focused on how we fit in with the group. We become aware of our standing and positioning with our groups. And then what happens is we go to college, or we don't, but we turn 18 and suddenly we're supposed to be an adult. We're no longer allowed to be an adolescent. We're supposed to be a grown-up at 18 years old. We're supposed to have it all figured out. We're supposed to conduct ourselves differently. We're supposed to have a career. We're supposed to be falling in love and handle ourselves in relationships in a certain kind of way. And when we make that transition into early adulthood, where does our adolescent go? The one that has big thoughts and opinions and big boundaries and cares a lot about her relationships and tends to be a little bit anxious or controlling or just has strong opinions about things. Where does that precious version of us go? The adult shuns her away and says, we need to be mature now. We need to have it together now. We need to manage our anxiety now. We need to relate well to others now. We need to be in good standing now. We need to attract a partner now. We need to be self-sufficient now. But where does that adolescent go? She breaks off, but she's still a part of our psyche. And so what this concept means is that even though I'm 42 years old and I am a middle-aged adult, am I a middle-aged adult? I certainly freaking feel like a middle-aged adult. I'm a middle-aged adult. There is still a part of me that is young and has big feelings, that has needs, that has dreams, that has desires, that wants to control things, that wants to predict things, that wants to push people away. There's those parts of me that still exist. And if I'm not aware of her, if I don't tend to her, if I don't heal her, if I don't reparent her, guess what? She comes out to take over when she is triggered. So when you find yourself screaming at your children because they've triggered you, you are in an adolescent version of yourself. People that are fighting with each other on social media, they are in an adolescent protective version of themselves. People in business making decisions that are not mindful of the greater good of others, that are not coming from a conscious, heart-led space, that are coming out of fear and separation. Adolescence, which is many of our big leaders in corporates and many of our politicians. It's literally inner children duking it out. I'm not impressed, right? When you have big feelings and you feel deep sadness, or you just start crying, or you feel left out of the group, or you feel this loneliness that I've been talking about that we all experience in motherhood, you're probably in your inner child. And so nothing is wrong with you, my love. We are these extraordinarily complex beings that need a growing awareness and a growing compassion to all of these parts. So then we can take our rightful seat at the head of the table of our life, in our adult self, in our capital S self, in what I call the CEO spot of our table of life. Okay, and so I've shared this before, but I want to share it again. If we have all these parts, I want you to imagine that you're sitting at a rectangular table, and you, when you are your most present, your most grounded, your most healed and whole and integrated self, the version of you that is aligned with who she wants to be, that is only living in fact and present moment. She's not living in the past. She's not worried about the future. She trusts in herself and her abilities. She believes in humanity and the power of others. And she knows ultimately we're going to be okay. That version of you, that's the CEO self energy. That's the one that I want seated at the head of the table. But I want you to imagine that you have a special seat for each and every one of your parts. There's a seat for your inner child. No one takes it for her. It's hers. She doesn't have to worry if it's there or not. There's a seat for your inner adolescent and your protective parts, right? So the parts of me that want to perfect and control and push people away, the parts of me that tend to overdrink and overeat and overconsume and over-purchase things, that's a protective part. That's a part of me that doesn't want to allow me to heal the very vulnerable and impermissible feelings that I have stuck in my brain and body. Then you also have your more conscious parts, right? Like my motherly and nurturing part, and my driven and successful part, and the part that, cares about purpose, pleasure, and playfulness. Everybody has a seat at the table, and all of their feelings and perceptions and experiences are not only acknowledged, they are valid. But everything filters through me, the CEO boss energy. So when I'm making business decisions, I'm not coming from a place of fear. I'm not coming from a place of my woundedness. When I am triggered, I want to make sure that I can regulate my nervous system so I can get back into my adult self, my CEO self, right? When I'm showing up in relationship, I'm trying to show up as my CEO self, not my wounded inner child that just wants to feel special. Now, have I arrived? Am I always sitting at my rightful seat at the head of the table? No, because when we do things over time that lose trust with these younger parts, they don't trust us to keep us safe. They don't trust us that we're going to do the right thing, that we're going to stop self-sabotage, stop accepting shitty partners in our lives, stop having low boundaries. And when we do those behaviors that are low self-energy based, that inner child or that inner teenager or that protective part is going to kick that CEO right out of the freaking chair, and it is going to start making decisions. It's going to say, we need some big energy here. We need some angry energy here. We need some controlling energy here to make sure we are safe, to make sure we are not screwed over, and to make sure we have a handle on this. So that happens. And it's about building awareness around when it happens. It's around lovingly walking that inner child or inner teenager or protective part back to their seat grounding and regulating your nervous system to take over, and doing things regularly to rebuild the relationship with all your parts, to integrate all your parts, and to show up for them in your highest integrity to prove to them that you've got this. You are going to keep all of your parts safe and validated and loved and nurtured and all those things. So the first step in anything, you guys hear me say this all the time, is building that awareness. So how do you begin to get to know your inner child? First, you have to have an energy of compassion and curiosity. We don't want to judge our children when they have big feelings. Why do we judge ourselves? It's not our adult, conscious, rational self that's having the big feelings. It's usually a younger version or just a sensation working through the body that the body has kept and is ready to release. There is nothing wrong or bad about having them. But we want to be more conscious about what's happening and what's coming through our body so we can work with it and work it through us so we're not holding on to it. So a place to start is, when do I have really big feelings, a big emotional response to thing where I'm feeling really left out? I'm feeling really uncool. I'm feeling really sad. I'm feeling really scared. I'm feeling really alone. I'm feeling really upset. That's an opportunity for you to lean in and say, gosh, I'm wondering what's really behind all of that. How am I feeling right now? What's underneath that? Yeah, it does feel like sadness, deep sadness, or deep rejection, or deep loneliness. And we have to have compassion for those feelings. Because there's, trust me when I say, a good damn reason that you have those. There's a good damn reason why our children have the feelings that they have. We don't want to shame them. We don't want to shame ourselves. But we've been taught to shame ourselves, especially as girls, especially around feelings like anger and rage and intensity. So all too often, we've been stuffing those feelings since we were a little girl. And when they come out big and maybe even ugly, according to some. And then we feel deeper shame around it. And then we perpetuate this stuffing of the feelings. So what we want to do is take away the shame and open the gates and say, go ahead and feel, little Brookie. Go ahead and feel. It's okay to feel sadness. I understand why you feel this rejected. And let there be space for those feelings to flow through you. Okay? So the first thing we want to do is get curious, be compassionate, allow the feelings to be what they are. And of course, you guys do this in a safe place. Like, you're not going to do this in your damn work meeting. You're not going to do this in a team meeting. You're not going to do this on a leadership retreat. You're going to do this with your therapist or with a journal or in your morning ritual where you have a safe environment to allow these feelings to be felt. Because that's the thing, guys, is people are like, how do I feel my feelings? Or how do I heal? You got to feel it to heal it. Okay? Another way to get to know your inner child is to ask yourself, who was I and what did I love to do when I was little? So when I was little, I loved to perform. I loved to sing and dance and have people watch me perform Madonna. Where am I allowing some of that to exist in my life today? I used to love the beach and the ocean and the waves and the freedom that came with being in the vastness of the ocean. That's a part of who I was and who I am. I definitely had big feelings, guys. And the more I've gotten to know myself and the more sensitive I realized I am as I've aged around energy. I mean, I used to have big emotional outbursts when something bad would happen to others, especially children. I used to feel so deeply that I would explode. I had no idea that I was so sensitive to energy and that I was absorbing other people's stuff. Now that I've gotten older, I've learned this about myself. I've started to do some work around energetic boundaries and understanding these sensitivities and how do I turn what has made me this like too much of a little girl into my superpower as a healer and a helper and a leader today, right? So those things that maybe people said were too much about you when you were little, Are they? Or are they actually your superpower? So this sensitivity that I had around energy, these big emotions that I felt, are absolutely my superpower and helps me understand what's really presenting when I'm sitting with people and helping them, what mamas in my group really need, what people on the team when I go in and do consulting, what it is that they actually need, not what it is that they put on their enrollment form. You hear what I'm saying? That thing has allowed me to see what's not being said. That thing has allowed me to trust my gut. That thing allows me to get to the root of issues, saving people years of therapy because I can now tune into it. But when I don't tune into it and when I don't take care of it and have boundaries with it, I'm basically a walking live wire absorbing everybody's energy. And yeah, I'm going to freak the fuck out soon. Okay? But it's not something to be ashamed of. It's a part of who I am. My inner child had big feelings. She was expressionate. She was creative. She was performative. She loved to make people laugh. Look what I'm doing right now on this podcast. I'm showing up, using my voice, performing in some ways authentically to bring you joy, to bring you healing, to make you feel less alone. When I show up in this way professionally, y'all, I am tending to that inner child. She is cheering me on, going, fuck yes. But all too many years before I embraced her, I shunned her away and said, there's no room for big feelings in business. There's no room for intuition in corporate America. Chill out, girl. Why are you so intense? Your passion is too much. I would shame the very things that are key to making me successful today. This is the power of inner child work. So what did you love to do when you were little? What made you feel the most like yourself? What brought you to life? Why did people come to you? People used to come to me for entertainment, right? I would make them laugh. I would get them to sing and dance. I would lift their energy. By human design, I'm a generator, meaning my soul's purpose is to lift the vibration. I've been doing that by way of making people laugh and being playful and being silly, but also talking about real shit. So that's a part of tending to my inner child. Okay? Another way to tend to your inner child, to get to know your inner child, to heal your inner child is to play, play, play. Again, when we became teenagers, we decided it's not cool to play. It's not cool to have an imaginary friend. It's not cool to take your stuffies anywhere. I say bring that shit back in an appropriate way. What does play look like for you, mama? Is it being creative? Is it designing something? Is it sports? Is it dance? Is it music? Is it nature? Is it pottery? Is it coloring? Is it writing a play? Is it watching plays? Like, it doesn't matter. There's no judgment. But what is it that you used to do for fun, just for the sake of joy? I want you to weave some of that back into your world. When we choose to play, okay, I think this will help you guys really grasp this. When your child needs your attention and they're driving you nuts, and so you finally put your phone away, put your work away, put the chores away, and you sit on the floor and you give your child your undivided attention and you just attune to them and you play and they have your full presence. What happens to that child when you do that? What happens? They chill out, don't they? They melt into you. They are present. They start to regulate their nervous system. And if you just sit with them for 15 or 20 minutes, well, then you can pull away to switch over the laundry. Then you can pull away for 5 minutes. They're not so clingy. So our inner child is the same way. When you spend that time with her and you begin to play, she regulates her nervous system. She feels like she can calm down because her needs are going to be met. You see, when we continue to abandon her needs, when we don't allow time for play or rest or these basic human needs that all babies need, right? Nourishment, sunlight, movement, play, connection, water, food. If we deny ourselves those basic needs, which we do all too often in mamahood because our needs come last, right? Family first, right? That inner child is feeling abandoned. She's getting worked up. She's getting upset because why is no one fucking taking care of me? Why is no one feeding me? Why is no one hugging me? Why is no one telling me that I am special the way that I am and that it's going to be okay? And she gets louder and more emotional and more obnoxious, doesn't she? So the same strategies that you would use to show your kids love, to tend to their emotional needs, to attune to them, to regulate their nervous systems, my love, here's the key. You got to do it for you too. And these beautiful babies are mirrors to us through our triggers of where we're not doing that work. And how painful and how beautiful all at the same time, right? It's brutiful, as Glennon Doyle would say. So when your child triggers you and you have a big reaction, step aside, regulate your nervous system, do the repair with your child, and then ask yourself, what need have I been ignoring in myself? What basic need have I been ignoring in myself? Guys, this is a way to heal your inner child. This is inner child work. So tend to your basic needs: rest, nourishment, connection, play, play, play. She will calm down when she knows you're going to tend to her. When you tend to her, you start building that trust that you're the grown-up she can actually lean on, rely on. She gets more calm and more regulated the more she knows she can trust you. You guys with me on this? And then here's where we begin to reparent our inner child. Maybe you've heard of this concept, maybe you haven't. But reparenting basically means going back and telling your inner child the things that she needed to hear that she didn't hear growing up, or giving her what she needed that she didn't get growing up. So if your emotional needs were not met growing up, you need to tend to her emotional needs. If you were not made to believe that you were beautifully perfect the way that you are before the world told you who you're supposed to be, you need to go back and tell your inner child that you're special and that you're magnificent as you are. If you didn't believe that you were smart enough, you need to go back and tell her that you are bright. If you didn't believe that you had what it takes because you had a really harsh parent or a harsh coach, you need to go back and say, I believe in you. So here's where we need to ask ourselves, and this goes back to those conditioning beliefs, right? What beliefs do you have about yourself that are not healthy, that are not affirming, that are not supporting you in becoming the highest version of yourself? Like, I am not enough. I'm not smart enough. I'll never feel good enough. I don't deserve that sort of wealth or abundance. I'm not capable of that kind of love. I don't have what it takes. I'm not special enough. What is that belief system that's playing on repeat in your subconscious mind that's affecting how you show up for the life you want to create? Your inner child is the part of you that heard that enough that it integrated into your mind, body, and spirit and became a core belief. So this is where the reprogramming work comes in, where we go back in time, but in the here and now. And we say, Brookie, but you have what it takes, girl. I see the good in you. You are special. You are enough. And I got you. I see the gold in you. That's one of the beliefs that I've been trying to implant in my daughter, Chloe, is I see so much gold in you. There's so much goodness in you, sweetheart. So much goodness in you. Don't say you're pretty enough, even though I can't help but tell her how cute she is. But I talk about how I see her gold. She's so golden to her core. I used to say that to Camden too. You are golden to your core. Because I'm hoping that if they hear it enough from me, they will believe they're golden. Because if they believe they're golden, imagine how that would inform how they feel about themselves and how they feel about others and how they relate to others and how they connect with others and how they have compassion for the world and what they end up doing in this world, right? So the interesting thing psychologically or from like a neuroscience standpoint is that when you tell yourself right here and now that I am special, your brain is recording that as truth, and your brain doesn't understand that that's a current thing versus something that should have been taught to you when you were little. In other words, it's never too late. If you didn't hear that you were special enough growing up, If your internal psyche can hear it now, if it hears it with repetition and emotional consistency, you can create new neural pathways around this, new patterns in your brain that start to think this thought over and over, where it becomes a neural pathway, and then it becomes a deeply held belief. So it doesn't matter that you didn't hear it when you were 5. You can hear it when you're 42. And so long as you hear it enough times, it will start to sink into your subconscious. How beautiful is that? So be thinking about that. What did your inner child need to hear that she didn't hear growing up that affects the way you see yourself and how boldly you choose or not choose to show up in this life? Any belief that is holding you back from seeing your own magic, your own brilliance, your own untapped, unlimited potential needs to be reprogrammed and reparented. So get a piece of paper and a pen and start writing out these beliefs. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not that special. I'll never feel good enough, whatever they are. And I want you to start telling that inner child, I understand why you have developed that belief, but it's not true. That came from other people's places of pain. That came from other people's lack of understanding, their lack of compassion. They didn't know that saying those things would hurt so deep and stick with you. We didn't know back then some of the things that we know now about human development and attachment and psychology and mental health. So a lot of us heard some things that were kind of disgusting growing up, right? Like I had a teacher that made fun of me because I couldn't hear. And that stuck with me. I had a teacher who made fun of me because I spelled Pepto-Bismol wrong, and he put it up on the board for everyone to laugh at. So in my grade school years, I developed this belief that I was kind of a dummy and that I would have to overcompensate with personality. And then that perpetuated because, of course, I got feedback that I wasn't the smartest. I'm not fucking Mensa. Oh, P.S. I'm also like, my brilliance comes from like not the rational brain. It comes from the subconscious brain, my intuition, my energy work. But that was never acknowledged, understood, or certainly wasn't validated or celebrated at school or in my professional life. So this belief that I wasn't that smart just got deeper and deeper and validated more and more over time. And if you think that that didn't affect how much success I thought I could have before I started doing this work, oh my God, guys, this probably held me back for a long time in every aspect of my life. Right? And now I get to be triggered about it all the time because my husband is like Mensa intelligent, and so is Chloe. And she gets it from him. And sometimes I'm like, I feel like the dummy in the room. And when I feel like the dummy in the room, that's when I go in and reparent my inner child. When I'm feeling like the dummy in the room, I know my inner child is hurt. She's feeling dumb. So instead of just pretending like that's not happening, I get curious and I get compassionate and I say, no, Brookie, you have your own special sort of intelligence, and it's not a competition. And how amazing you must be that you surrounded yourself with such amazing, beautiful human beings. Like, it's good. You're golden, honey. You're fine. And over time, the more I use my triggers to then reparent myself, I've begun to reprogram these subconscious core beliefs. I've begun to heal my inner child. I've integrated her into my CEO table of life. She has a seat at the table. I ask her how she feels about things all the time. I ultimately make the final decision as the CEO, but my inner child, she has a voice, and her voice fucking matters. And how many of us girls, our voice, we didn't feel like it mattered, and not necessarily because of any one thing, just culture told us that women's voices shouldn't be the strongest at the table. It was the men. It was the white men who had the strongest voice at the table. So here's what I want for you, my love. I want you to know that you were born perfect and precious and with unlimited potential. And then you went through conditioning and human growth and development. And then the world told you this idea of what the perfect girl, the perfect daughter, the good mom would be. And you've been busting your ass your whole life trying to keep up with this unimaginable standard. And when you haven't reached that standard because it's impossible to reach, you've shamed the shit out of yourself. And then you've doubled down on your perfection. Well, I'm going to try harder. I'm going to push longer. I'm going to perfect more. I'm going to achieve more. I'm going to make more. I'm going to shame the shit out of myself until I'm skinny and successful and all these things. No, my love. That's why you're on the brink of burnout. We're not subscribing to that ideal of perfection. We're remembering who the fuck we were before the world told us we were anything other than just a pure, vibrant being, a pure golden form of energy, a soul, a precious, precious person. I see that in you. I know that exists in you. I'm still working really hard to see that in myself, but I see that in you. I see that in my babies. I see that in my husband. I see that in my clients. I see that in my friends. So what I want for you to do is stop subscribing to this ideal of perfection, and I want you to start to do this inner child healing. I want you to start to build trust with her by acknowledging her big feelings, making it safe for her to feel, normalizing fucking normal. It is normal to have big feelings. We were designed, in fact, to have a wide range of feelings. I want you to start to tap into who you were when you were little. I want you to play. I want you to make sure your basic needs are met. Stop putting yourself last. Make sure that if you're hungry, you're eating. If you're thirsty, you're drinking, that you get outside every day, that you get a hug from someone every day. Like, tend to your basic needs, and you're healing that inner child. And when she gets triggered and you have big feelings, instead of meeting her with judgment or shame, I want you to meet her with curiosity and compassion. And I want you to regulate her nervous system like you would your precious children. And I want you to say, I understand you have these big feelings. Tell me more about how you feel. Tell me more about what you're feeling. And then I want you to reparent yourself in that moment. And I want you to tell that inner child what she needs to heal, to feel safe, to feel heard, to feel seen, to feel loved, to feel worthy of all that is good in this world. And I want you to do that over and over and over again with consistency, with repetition, and with emotional intensity. And this is how we heal. This is how we heal our inner child. This is how we reprogram our subconscious core beliefs. This is how we engage in neuroplasticity, where we literally rewire our brain's networks to see the good in ourselves. And can you imagine what's possible for us on this other side of perfection? This is what unperfected is all about. What is possible for us when we stop trying to achieve the impossible? We stop shaming ourselves when we don't meet that standard. We start to do our healing. We start to reprogram our beliefs, and we start to come from a framework of, I deserve all that is good in the world. Do you understand how your behavior will change? Do you understand what's possible in terms of co-creating in the universe when you come from that belief system energetically? Sister, this opens up doors you can't even imagine. I'm currently in this work. Every time I do a deeper level of therapeutic work, I unlock a new level energetically. And I have witnessed this pattern over time in myself and in my clients for over a decade now that I believe in it wholeheartedly. So may you take a piece of what we talked about today, put it in your back pocket, weave it into your world, and play with it for the next 30 days. And come to us in the Mommy's Mental Health Matters private Facebook group and talk about your journey. Ask any questions you have about that. I'm going to probably do my free live coaching this week all around the inner child in there, where we can talk more about it, or you can ask me questions, or just share what your journey is. But this is really powerful stuff, because what's possible for us on the other side is unlimited potential, but also we change the type of mother we are. We change the type of partner we are. We change the type of leader we are. Everybody wins when a woman does this work. And we are changing that generation ahead of us to be more healed, to believe in themselves, to stop striving for perfection. We're changing the narrative. We're changing the game. And that's freaking massive. So I'm sending you such big love, Mama. If you appreciated this podcast, will you do me a favor? Will you please share it with one mama who could use this message, or any of the messages that I'm sharing regarding mommy's mental health? It is my mission to get this podcast into the heads and hearts of as many mommies as possible. And when you share it with a friend and that friend follows or subscribes, when you guys rate and review it on iTunes or Spotify, that's helping me in my mission. And we are in this mission together. And so I would so appreciate if you would take just the moment to do that, because we're healing together, aren't we? Anyways, that's enough for today. I'm sending such love, and I will see you all same time, same place next week. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for listening to the Unperfected Pod. I hope this episode helped you feel a little less alone and a little more inspired to be you. If you like what we're doing here, I would so appreciate that you subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. If you do, share the episode on Instagram and tag me at BrookeJeanUnperfected to enter to win a 1-to-1 laser coaching session. Also, feel free to join me in my private Facebook community, Mommy's Mental Health Matters, where we continue the conversation. Thanks again for being here, and see you in next week's episode.